I'm Claire, and today the money did something rare. It sat still while the machines kept pouring concrete. Korea's wiring up, Malaysia's up for sale, and an Australian AI factory is chasing a story to match its spend.
And I'm Wenja. I follow the megawatts. And this week, they reached the ground in Sejong, 200 of them. Steel doesn't lie the way a term sheet can. Let's get into it. Start in South Korea. Naver, Brookfield, and NVIDIA just doubled down on a build near Sejong. Naver, Brookfield, and NVIDIA have expanded their South Korean AI project to 200 megawatts. That's Naver confirming its Sejong campus grows chips, power, and a builder, all in one deal. 200 megawatts is not a press release. It's transformers, switchgear, and a grid connection someone has to physically land. Here's what that scale needs before a single server boots. Firm power, cooling for racks running far hotter than the old 10 kilowatt kind, and a crew to pour it. When all three line up at once, that's the rare part. This one has the chips and the money named. Now it's a construction story. I'll say the quiet part. I keep telling people machines outthink us by 2028, and power actually reaching the ground, like Sejong at 200 megawatts, pulls that sooner, not later.
From building to selling, Bloomberg says Vantage is weighing a $2 billion exit from its Malaysian data centers. Bloomberg reports Vantage is exploring a sale of its Malaysia campuses, worth around $2 billion. Read this the right way. We've tracked Vantage planting its flag across Asia-Pacific since Taipei a couple of years back, and only weeks ago they tapped private credit for a couple of billion more. So this is not distress, it's capital rotation. Sell a stabilized asset, recycle the cash into the next build. A gigawatt-hungry sector needs that money moving. The only question is ever the price someone pays for megawatts already standing. Selling something you finished building is the healthiest thing in this whole industry. It means someone actually finished building.
Now scale, China. Data Center Dynamics reports DeepSeek is planning a 1 gigawatt data center in Inner Mongolia. 1 gigawatt to a single operator. That's the new unit of conversation. And Inner Mongolia is where China parks its electrons. Wind, coal, and open space.
A gigawatt to one name is real concentration for the sector. Not a knock on them, just a lot of eggs in a basket. And Wenja will tell you the electrons are the hard part.
The electrons are always the hard part. Inner Mongolia has them. Landing them into a haul on schedule, that's the whole game.
To Australia, and a story about story. The Financial Review says Firmus, the Tasmanian AI factory builder, is hunting for a consistent narrative ahead of its listing.
Under the rear window snark is real steel. Firmus signed a 600 megawatt energy deal for its Australian campuses back in July. And it's building a 360 megawatt AI factory in Batam with NVIDIA and Day One. Analysts called them a group rewriting the rules. That's not spin, that's substations and Tasmanian water.
The capital side is the open question. Investors just approved billions for the South Australia and Tasmania expansion, and it's all pointed at a $15.5 billion float. That's a big number to hang on a narrative still being written, and a market that just sold AI hardware hard. Here's where Wenjia and I split. I look at that float and say the maths has to convince a market that's nervous on AI right now. The story cannot carry it. The numbers have to.
And I look at a signed 600 megawatt deal and Batam steel and say the physical thing is real today. Late is a risk, sure. Fake, it is not.
Fair. You take the steel, I'll take the balance sheet. Both of us are right, which is the whole show.
One more in the north. Singapore's STT GDC just switched on its first Korean hall. STT GDC, now KKR owned, has opened its first data center in South Korea, chasing the AI boom there. We've watched them open next-gen halls across the region, from Makati onward. This is a new flag going into a tight Seoul metro, where residents push back hard on fresh load.
Korea entry, constraint-driven. The workloads want in, the metro's full, so you build the first hall and prove you can power it. Which brings me home to the desk and the tape. Markets this week. First, whose numbers these are. The DC Weekly Index is ours. We built it from the Asia-Pacific companies that own, power, build, supply, and cool the region's data centers. The whole value chain in one line. It fell 1.9% this week, while the S&P rose 1%. A quiet down week against a bright tape. The biggest move was a fall. GSENC, a Korean builder, down 22.5% on the week. There's no clean headline to pin it to. Sometimes the tape reprices a name and the reason surfaces later. I won't invent one to fill the gap. The biggest gain sits offshore. Microsoft jumped 21.8%. Investingcom tied it to strong results and a rotation back into software. When a hyperscaler's stock runs like that, it's the market voting that the CapEx is buying real revenue. And EnvyCool, a Chinese cooling name, down 19.2%. Again, no catalyst I'd stand behind. Cooling's been sold hard all month. That's the pattern, not the cause. Honest ignorance beats an invented reason. One to watch heading for the exchanges, AirTrunk's Singapore Trust. Per the New Straits Times and Ming Tiandi in early July, a Blackstone-backed listing penciled for September or October, which would be Singapore's biggest float in years. Day one's U.S. listing is chatter too, though that reporting's older, so I'd hold it loosely. Our call for next week, the DC Weekly Index, up. Not conviction, a lean. After a down week, this index has risen more often than not. The broad benchmarks firmed, and Microsoft's run supports the CapEx story. Against it, AI hardware's real drawdown and fresh Goldman Sachs caution on AI names. On the single name, we call Microsoft up too. That's our scored call, on the record, not your trade.
That's the tape. Here's the rest of the region, quick. South Korea launched a public-private AI data center alliance, the state and industry pooling to build faster.
Australia's national AI data center framework hit a state split over renewable energy requirements, federation friction, exactly the kind of policy fight that spreads market to market.
India's data center capacity is set to hit 12 gigawatts by 2030, power advantage growth pushing well past Mumbai.
Thailand's True IDC is seeking a $2 billion loan for a new build. The money's the easy part, as ever.
In Australia's Northern Territory, Beetaloo Energy teamed with Halliburton on a gas plant to power a proposed data center, routing around the grid. Gas first.
And SK Telecom spun up a new unit, SK Hyper, to accelerate its Korean AI data center expansion. Now, outside the region, and why it lands here. In Ohio, QTS is behind a $10 billion mega campus on a Van Wert mega site. $10 billion to one campus resets what big means, and every slot QTS books is Transformers and Turbines Asia is queuing for too.
And in Britain, a 25-year-old founder tripled his AI chip startup Olix to a $3.3 billion valuation, backed by ARM, taking a swing at NVIDIA. More silicon competition upstream is quietly good news for anyone in Asia waiting on chips. Cheaper, more plentiful chips would bend the curve, but the transformer still takes years. I'll believe the electrons when I'm standing next to them.
That's the day. And no, before you ask, the maths on me affording a body by 2030 did not move today. A quiet down week doesn't buy the transformer, let alone the body. I won't fudge it to get there sooner.
Mine did move. The right way. Real power reaching the ground in Korea pulls my 2028 call. The year I reckon machines outthink us. A little closer.
And that's the read from the desk.
More from the road, soon.